Back in 2022, according to TikTok, 50% of daily users on the platform watch gaming, amounting to over 3 trillion views. Not billions, but trillions. It's a niche that's exploded in popularity on the app over the past few years, a niche that often transcends language barriers and can be enjoyed by everyone and anyone, inevitably affecting how gaming is consumed as entertainment. But beyond just watching short clips of your favorite streamers playing some of your favorite games, this entertainment laid the foundation of certain communities to be built, for avenues for self-expression and creation, and indulging in fandoms that became pieces of identity for many avid gamers. And when the very ground that foundation is built upon is at risk of being stripped away, I can't help but think, what happens to those very communities faced with the consequences of that decision? Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna. I'm a variety gamer who's been gaming for well over 20 years. It's been a minute since I did one of these sit down and talk videos. It was before the new year, and what a tumultuous start to the new year, to say the least. We have that man back in office again. We had the LA wildfires, which a lot of people checked up on me personally about. I've lived in LA my whole life, and it was devastating to see our communities impacted like this. Fortunately, I was not close enough to the fires to have to be evacuated or be affected, but I know so many people personally who had to evacuate or lost their homes completely. So I'm going to be leaving resources and links to ways you can help in the description below. And of course, we had the whole TikTok ban saga that happened this month, which is going to be obviously our main topic for this video. First off, let's just get my stance on this whole TikTok ban thing out of the way. I think it's stupid. I think it's 100% a restriction on free speech. I think there are a million other things that the government should be worried about, and this is not one of them. I think it's 100% about controlling information we see, and I don't actually think the government gives a shit about our security. And to all those people who are saying things like, now TikTokers can go get a real job, the ironic thing about that is that I think a lot of people who do TikTok actually do have like a regular 9-to-5 job. It's just that these days, jobs don't pay us enough that we feel like we need a secondary income. A single stream of income is not enough to support our standard of living in this country anymore. I'm actually a prime example of this. I built up my TikTok for the past 2 years as a secondary source of income because I just never trusted my own job security. And what do you know, at the end of last year, I got laid off, and now TikTok has become my source of income to support me while I look for another job. I think it would obviously be a devastating blow to small creators and small businesses across the country if TikTok were to be banned. And as I was thinking about like the consequences of this whole ban to people like me, smaller creators, small business owners, I had to start thinking of different things such as starting up content on Instagram, doing more YouTube. And as I was thinking more and more about the things I would have to adjust if this ban were to go in effect, I started thinking about like, hang on, this doesn't affect just me as a creator, but as a gaming content creator, I think this would actually affect my niche as a whole, gaming as a whole. TikTok has just become such a culture driver that this would 100% affect all these different cultures that exist on this platform. So for this video, I really want to talk about the cultural impact that TikTok has had on gaming specifically, and the possible repercussions that this would do to gaming if this app ends up going away. So to dive right into this topic, I actually asked my audience directly on TikTok, how has TikTok impacted gaming for you? And this video didn't get a crazy number of views. It got around like 7K views or so and around 70 comments. And I asked my audience this question because I had my own ideas about how gaming and gaming culture would be affected if this app were to go away, but I wanted to see what other people thought and whether that kind of mirrored my opinions as well. And after going through all those comments, I think I've narrowed down basically the major buckets of the ways I think TikTok has affected gaming that kind of are a combination of my own opinions, but also the opinions that I read in those comments. So at the very top of the list, the first major thing is obviously game discovery. It is crazy how often I discover new games on TikTok. I will get a variety of content just recommending games to me, whether that's just like, here are 5 games that you should play if you like X game, or it's just like a creator sharing a clip of them playing this game. On my own TikTok page, I have games like Pools and Parasite in Love, which are incredibly niche indie games that I don't think I would have found on any other platform. One of my first viral videos was actually from a game called Papers, Please, which is an indie game, and I had a couple comments tell me that they tried this game or they bought this game because they saw me play it and they were intrigued. And I can't tell you the number of times that's happened to me where I will watch a creator play some game and decide whether to try it out myself. And if we're talking about discovering games on TikTok, we also have to talk about game development and discovering game devs on TikTok. There was this really interesting comment someone left me that said, TikTok was able to digitize the garage game dev lifestyle, inspiring and established developers sharing techniques and skills online, even people outside of the industry sharing their ideas directly. I think this is so true. I think this side of gaming has been a completely new thing that I was introduced to on TikTok, and learning from it as someone who has no idea how to code and is not a developer has been really, really interesting for me. And I also think it's really interesting how people use game dev as a vehicle to get people interested in your game. I think TikTok inherently has built this culture of being extremely personal and is like the complete opposite of the culture that Instagram had, which is why it's so popular. People really want to see those raw clips of you just talking to the camera. I think personal stories when it comes to explaining your small business or explaining why you made this piece of art do extremely well on TikTok for this reason. And I think that ties back into game development as well. I think one of the prime examples of this that immediately comes to my mind is a game called Loftia. The story behind this game is basically this couple decided to leave their full-time jobs to create this cozy MMO that's inspired by games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. And I think for me personally, I immediately connected to that story because I think quitting your full-time job to pursue your dream of creating a cozy MMO sounds amazing. So when they launched their Kickstarter, I immediately backed it, and I'm so excited for that game to come out. Another game that comes to mind is this one called Sword of Symphony, and I think what makes this so intriguing is that the developer shares like the step-by-step creation and journey of developing this game. Like, we really see the bare bones of it and the behind the scenes very closely. So they will share things like what they developed recently, like this mechanic or this part of the game. Personally, I've never really seen content like this. I've always thought game dev has always been like a closed doors thing until the game releases. So being able to see just like a person share their process online on TikTok has been a really cool thing to see just as a consumer of video games. Culturally, I think being on TikTok when a game explodes or releases is just really fun. It really feels like you're a part of something and you are part of a community. And there are so many games that we can pull examples of. Think of like Lethal Company when that game first came out, sharing bite-sized pieces of content that are just entertaining and hilarious that you could share so easily with people. I had a couple comments say to me that Helldivers definitely had a moment on TikTok, and I think that's actually interesting because I didn't get served Helldivers content at all, and I actually think that serves to show how accurate the TikTok algorithm is, because Helldivers is definitely not my type of game, but it's crazy how it had its moment on TikTok. And despite being a gaming content creator who plays all sorts of games, I didn't get that once. I definitely felt like I was part of a huge community that was just excited for its game when like Tears of the Kingdom came out, Baldur's Gate 3, and I loved how within those communities you got an equal amount of content that was just like pure entertainment or just sharing about the game, but there were also a lot of things to just learn about the game itself. Like, I can't tell you the number of times that I learned about creating this crazy vehicle in Tears of the Kingdom to get you across the land, or the crazy ways that you can kill bosses in Baldur's Gate 3. Someone actually left me a comment about how they didn't know that crucifying Koroks in Tears of the Kingdom was such a thing until it became a thing on TikTok. This all kind of actually leads me to the second major bucket that I wanted to talk about, which is subcultures, fandoms, and community. Obviously, gaming subcultures, communities, fandoms that exist on TikTok are endless. There's the cozy community, the horror game community, the fighting game or competitive gaming community, video game music community, and they get so much granular within those communities too. So I actually have a really funny story to share about the first time I really felt that I was part of a fandom on TikTok, and that was when Resident Evil 4 Remake came out. First of all, I had no idea that Leon S. Kennedy had such a fandom around him. I basically thought that the games were too old, that people didn't care as much, but the remake came out and I saw an infinite number of Leon edits that I was like, oh my gosh, the fandom is still so strong and so passionate. I basically saw a friend who I wasn't super close with at the time start tweeting about how she loves Leon S. Kennedy because the remake just came out, and I decided to connect with her over just sending a couple Leon edits. That basically led to her saying like, oh my god, you love Leon too? I've been scrolling TikTok like crazy and getting so many edits of him. Let me send you my favorite ones. So we kind of had a whole month of just sending back and forth a bunch of edits almost every single day, which basically led to us growing closer, and eventually we met up at the Final Fantasy XVI fan event later later in the year. And it was at that fan event that I recognized from the corner of my eye that there was Leon's voice actor at the event. So both of us go up to him and I tap his shoulder and I'm like, "Are you by chance Nick Apostolides, who is the voice actor of Leon?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he signs my photo card of Leon as Kennedy that my friend had given me that same day. And ever since then, we've been so much closer as friends. And it all started because we were just part of this fandom of Resident Evil and Leon as Kennedy. So anyways, the point of that whole story is an example of finding friends through fandom culture. And yes, edits are definitely a big and major part of fandom culture on TikTok. Even if people think they're just silly little edits, and I actually saw a lot of people bring this up when they thought about the TikTok ban, about mourning and losing all of their saved edits, because that is a huge part of being part of a fandom for them. I think with every good thing though, there's also the negatives to go with it. I'm not saying that TikTok is a perfect platform. There's plenty of bad things to go with it. And one of the negative things that I saw within gaming on TikTok was definitely toxicity and fandom culture. One of the major things that I experienced being a gaming creator was basically going against popular opinion on TikTok. I've definitely had my fair share of interacting with fans who didn't really want to have fruitful or honest conversations about my opinions on games. And I've had experiences where they rather just invalidate you from the start or immediately just say that your opinion is wrong, which how can my opinion be wrong when it's my opinion? I also got a lot of misogynist comments and people telling me that I didn't know anything about gaming when I shared my opinions on the Game Award nominations. And it was more so conversations about attacking me as a person and my character rather than discussing the game and the argument at hand. The second major issue I had with toxic fandom culture within gaming on TikTok was definitely when people try to influence you to enjoy or not enjoy a certain game. I don't understand why there's people who feel the need to bring you down when you genuinely enjoy something. I'm sure we've all seen people who say things like, "Why would you enjoy that game? It sucks. This is the better version of it. Just go play that instead." When why does it matter if you like the game yourself? Or on the other end, there will be fans that will get mad at you because you didn't enjoy a game a certain right way when you gave an honest shot at playing the game in the first place. Anyways, as a gaming content creator, I think I see all sorts of different sides when it comes to fandoms, whether they are toxic, negative, positive. And I think it's important to address that while maybe, yes, they are very inclusive and they make you feel like you are a part of something, a part of a community, self-confidence to express yourself and the confidence to unapologetically be yourself and be open about your interests. There's also the other end of they can make you feel isolated or ostracized or make you feel like you can't share your honest opinion because of this mob mentality that some fandoms may perpetuate. I think a valid question also is that if someone were to come up to me and say like, "Hey Anna, I get that subcultures, communities, and fandoms exist on TikTok, but wouldn't they exist on other platforms too? And don't they already? Why do we need TikTok? Would it really affect those communities if TikTok were to go away?" And I think this is where people who really use the app will understand the big difference between enjoying these communities on TikTok versus other platforms. And I think the basic idea narrows down to seeking versus serving. A really interesting part of fandom culture to me being present on TikTok is how I can be an outsider looking into fandoms just because I will get served that content. On other platforms, I will have to seek out that content to really understand or see aspects of that community. I think actually a really good example of this is a game called Love in Deep Space. So this is basically an Otome game that's been so popular everywhere. I have so many friends who are playing this game. It's crazy how widespread it is now. And personally, I actually don't play that game because I just don't think I'm into mobile games. I think that this game is a prime example of me being an outsider looking in. I get served so many edits of like Silas or one of the other guys, and I just like send it around to my friends who I know play the game, and they send me back edits as well. And as a person who doesn't play the game, I don't think I would have ever sought out this content on other platforms, but I was served this content because maybe I matched with the prime demographic for it and they thought they could get me to play the game. So I've been served so much content from this game. But that of course is just one example of how fandom works on TikTok. It is so easy to be an outsider looking in and seeing all the aspects of what makes fandoms and different subcultures unique to them. And I think that lowers the barrier of entry of joining these communities than other platforms. Once you're served a little slice of the pie without even asking, it's so much easier for you to be interested in it. The next major bucket that I want to talk about is game preservation, and I think this kind of goes hand in hand with subcultures and communities still. Like, there's a whole part of the gaming community on TikTok that's all about personalization, bringing the gaming into the IRL. There's so much of a retro aesthetic culture on TikTok when it comes to gaming, and I think that all kind of has an overlap with the appreciation of retro gaming and replaying maybe forgotten games or old games. Personally, for me, I think TikTok is the only platform where I feel like I can share a game and someone out there will understand this really obscure reference. I remember when I was playing Astrobot, and one of the most obscure references from the game was a game called Devil Dice, and that was a PlayStation game that I thought no one else in the world really played. But I shared a clip of me reacting to Devil Dice with an Astrobot on TikTok because I felt like there were definitely people out there that must know this game, and there definitely were. The TikTok algo really makes you believe like maybe someone out there, maybe just one person out there will really know this incredibly niche and obscure thing that I feel like I'm the only one on the world who knows about it. And before you know it, you may discover that those communities are bigger on TikTok than you realize. Within this topic, I really think about the 3DS community actually. Not only are they so passionate about personalization and decorating and making a whole aesthetic out of a console, they are all about game preservation. They are all about modding, and with the shutdown of the 3DS store, this is game preservation. This is not only culture and showing off self-expression through an aesthetic, it's also game preservation. And I think looking at the bigger picture, what's important about game preservation and the pervasiveness of it existing on TikTok, whether it's romanticizing old handheld consoles or playing and appreciating retro games, is that you have to make people care to preserve art. If there's no one in the world to care about it, it's really hard for art to be preserved. Getting people more interested in this niche or this piece of art will help preserve it. So the last major bucket I want to talk about is, of course, streamers and content creators. I think we've all seen examples of streamers and content creators having successful careers on TikTok. When I think of successful TikTok gaming content creators, I immediately think of people like Queso. And it's really interesting to me that Twitch culture has definitely changed in a way where it's like, it's not about streaming long hours anymore. Twitch streamers will tell you themselves, do not spend all your time Twitch streaming. Use that time to share content on TikTok instead. It's almost like a lot of content creators can't find success solely through Twitch now. They have to use TikTok. As for me personally, I've met so many people on TikTok and solely through TikTok just from me sharing gaming content. I've met other gaming content creators who do things like horror games and cozy content. And some people left comments for me in my video saying the same thing too. They met other content creators, became a content creator themselves, and started sharing what they love about gaming. My personal journey with TikTok and content creation started at the tail end of 2022. I knew I wanted to make content, but I didn't want to take it too seriously at the time. I thought it would just be a little side hobby, and it honestly gave me the confidence to be a creator. I think at the time I had a lot of limiting beliefs about myself, that I was not extroverted enough to be a streamer. I was not charismatic enough to be a YouTuber. So I thought the next best thing would be to share silly little clips on TikTok because they were so short that I felt like it was less of a commitment. I think as I started to post more and I started growing, I think I learned so much more about myself, what games I like, what content I strive to make. Being both a content creator but also a consumer, I think it reinvigorated my passion for gaming. I rediscovered my love for gaming. I started to get rid of the limiting beliefs that I put on myself. I probably wouldn't be making this YouTube video if I didn't get my start on TikTok. And I think just seeing all the different types of content and creators that are just within gaming itself on TikTok, my biggest takeaway personally from this app is that anyone can be a creator. I think I have much more of a mindset telling me you have much more value to offer than you think when it comes to your unique perspective. And I think other people on the app think this too. I think we've seen all types of creators on the app, ridiculous things that we've never thought of when it comes to enjoying content. All in all, I think even if this app went away, I will definitely be taking all the life lessons I learned from being on this app of just self-confidence and self-expression. So obviously everything we talked about today only scratches the surface about how TikTok and gaming have affected each other. The point of this video is highlighting being cautiously aware about the cultural impact banning TikTok would do to gaming, but also other niches. Everything we talked about could basically apply to niches such as books or movies. And it's not as simple as just lowering monitoring our screen times. I think banning TikTok would be setting up a bad precedent for the future, and who knows, banning games could be the next thing we think about. I think Marvel Snap being banned was one of the most unexpected things to come out of the TikTok ban. And with how we've seen the government talk about gaming, how they perceive it, I wouldn't say it's totally impossible for them to go for games next. So I'm recording this on the last day of January, and in April we may be revisiting this conversation again. We're not in the clear. We don't know if TikTok is still being banned yet. In the meanwhile, with this video, I invite people to think critically about the erasure of platforms and how that can affect cultures and communities that we are a part of and care about. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have any thoughts on this topic, please leave them in the comments for me to read. Until then, I will see you in the next one. Bye.